And now I'll introduce our next, I'll wait for the applause. And now let me introduce our next speaker, Daniel Dyboski-Bryant, Danzig 360 and Second Life. Daniel's been an educator for 23 years. He speaks 5 languages. I am so impressed. Teaches and trains ESOL and VR at Coleg Menai in North Wales, UK. He consults, speaks, writes, and delivers training for and in virtual reality. In his free time, he runs Educators in Virtual Reality, a monthly meetup in Alt Space VR, as well as the associated Discord server, where a growing community of educators teaching in and with virtual reality meet, discuss, share, and learn together. According to Daniel, many factors are converging to create a perfect storm in the classroom. A new wave of immersive technology stands to fundamentally alter how we think about education and learning. It's no longer a question of, should we get involved? But if we don't start now, we might get left behind. What opportunities and challenges lie ahead as we set off on this grand adventure? Daniel challenges us to find out together, and now I'll turn the mic over to Daniel for his presentation. May you learn in interesting times, education with and in virtual reality.
Okay, thank you very much for the introduction. Can everybody hear me okay? I'm just maybe, yeah, lovely, fantastic. I'm getting lots of yeses. Thank you so much. Thank you, Valerie, for that keynote speech. I learned a lot, and actually a lot of what I'm going to be saying ties in quite closely with what you've just said, which is very nice. But let me start with my first slide here. Yes, may you learn in interesting times. So thank you for having me speak at your 10th anniversary. It's an honor, and I'm excited that this is where we are right now. The fact that Second Life is looking from virtual worlds to virtual reality, a great sign in my mind. This is my 10-year-old son, Ziggy. He isn't a digital native, he's a spatial native who designs 3D worlds with remote friends and has his own Minecraft YouTube channel. Until about a year ago, or a bit more, he called me a digital dinosaur. So I thought I'd boost my street cred a bit with him and bought him a cheap mobile VR headset without any real idea of what it was or what it could do. He thought it was pretty cool, but he wasn't that fazed. So I thought I'd give it a try myself. I unexpectedly found myself doing a virtual tour of the International Space Station and had a career-changing experience. Fast forward 18 months. Just a moment. Slide. Yep, thank you. Already gone. Fast forward 18 months, and I have co-founded Educators in VR. As the introduction said earlier, this is a growing community of educators, trainers, and developers who meet in VR to learn and share, much like we're doing here now, but inside VR. I also train, consult, and speak about VR in education, as again I'm doing now. And at Colegman, I also lead the Exploring VR in Education. So we have a lot of commonality. The last 18 months have really been quite a ride. I feel like I've landed on a high-speed train and have finally found my tribe. And I find it all very exciting. I have so many questions. Feels like we're on the verge of something big, that we are pioneers on the frontier. What we really need are scouts who can spot a way to navigate the paths ahead. When Elise asked me to give a keynote at this event, I was at first unsure because I didn't immediately see how Second Life fit with virtual reality, because I had only ever experienced virtual worlds immersively from the inside. But it didn't take me long to realize that, yes, of course, Second Life is a virtual world, and you guys have been doing virtual for a long time. Second Life, I think, was founded in 2003. VCARA is 10 years old. The more I looked into it, the more excited I got. Partly because I want social VR to become as established and developed and sophisticated and with as many users as Second Life or more. Partly because when you guys bring your years of experience from virtual worlds to virtual reality, all stand to benefit. You are the pioneers who can help the new pioneers. Help us to avoid the mistakes you've learned from. Help us set off on the right foot. I'll give you an example. Recently, an initiative to agree on a single time zone for virtual reality has taken off on our Discord server. We're all really excited about this idea, but it's new territory for us. And then Elise here joined the discussion with very useful insights into how Second Life had already dealt with this. Something that seemed like the complete unknown to us, you guys have already worked out. We have a lot to learn from you. And this brings me to my first point. Check for the slides. Here we go. Okay. I want to talk about the years 2003, 2012, and 2019 just briefly. In 2003, before Facebook, Linden Lab built Second Life and social 3D worlds were born. While it may not have become what Linden Lab envisioned it to ultimately become, it made its own way and spawned a community of users like yourself that together crafted a world for themselves and their friends that was unparalleled in terms of creativity. It may not have become the mainstream success that some people have hoped it would have become, and for others it became bigger than they ever dreamt. But maybe not going stellar big was a good thing. The work you have done, the work that has gone in, and the learning that has come out of Second Life is invaluable for our road ahead in virtual reality. I wonder how many, while engaging in Second Life, have ever thought, man, if only I could get inside Second Life, that would be so cool. Has anybody ever had that thought? I'm sure some of you in the audience have had that thought. Well, that brings us to the year 2012, a year that might help bring Second Life from its pioneering past into a new transformed future. Because in 2012, a young Californian living in his parents' trailer was getting ready to share with the world the product of years of hacking hardware to bring to life his wildest dream. In April 2012, Palmer Luckey launched the Oculus Rift Kickstarter, which, as I hope we all know, has gone on to spark the birth of a whole new paradigm. Of course, virtual reality had been around much longer, but it was the Oculus Rift that brought it to the attention and to the budgets of everyday consumers. This was the starting line. Still, there were a few headsets, the quality was not quite there yet, and it required an expensive PC to run. Significantly also, both Altspace VR and Minecraft were born around the very same time. Fast forward to today, 2019. I'm not sure if you all realize, but we are just 2 days away from two huge events for virtual reality. First of all is the Merging Realities Conference hosted by Lethbridge College, Alberta, Canada. I've given Elise some links at the end of the talk to share with you. The Merging Realities Conference is a real-life conference about virtual reality and education, being streamed inside virtual reality. This is nothing new to you, we're doing it right now, but for virtual reality, this is the starting line for virtual reality. We will be seeing more and more of these events being streamed or even hosted in VR. And the second big event about to happen is the launch of the Oculus Quest headset on the left here. This new headset is the culmination of 10 years of innovation and improvement that will be setting the standard for VR for years to come, at least for consumers, maybe not. These two headsets are standalone. That means you don't require a cable. There's 6 degrees of freedom, which means if you are wearing this headset, you can walk around the room you're in, and you will be walking around the virtual reality space that you're seeing. They also have hand tracking, which means that you can interact with both hands, like in the video clip you saw earlier. But most of all, they are affordable and they require minimum setup. Headsets before this have all required quite intensive setup and technical. The only thing really that could make this technology even better would be fast broadband. But as we all know, 5G is right around the corner. So we're really in for an interesting run. Social VR, social VR has really grown and matured significantly over the past few years. And we have a number of viable platforms to choose from now, including Linden's own Sansar, AltSpace VR, as mentioned before, VR Chat, High Fidelity, Somnium Space, and ScienceBase, and several others. The social aspects of VR and the communities they spawn are growing at a faster rate than VR games. VR games is where virtual reality started. That's why I'm excited that Elise has asked me to speak here, because I want to learn from your experience of the virtual social world, the dynamics involved. As I said, I believe we're on the verge of something truly big. The term I like to use for what we are experiencing is the quickening. This is when forces come together and bring forth something so important that things can never be the same after that point. Virtual worlds make a huge contribution. Let me bring up the next slide just a moment. I like this quote, new technology is common, but new thinking is rare. This brings me to my second point, VR in education. As I said a moment ago, virtual reality started with gamers hacking their way into their favorite computer game. But the rift that they opened, unintended, made a way for unforeseen opportunities and disruptions. As a result of the work I'm doing, I've become convinced that the education and training sector is actually a perfect fit for what VR has to offer. Because education isn't just about learning information. It's about developing new thinking, new perspectives, and about collaborating. And two of the things that virtual reality is really good at, like Second Life, is expanding perspectives by enabling amazing and impossible immersive experiences and enabling collaboration across the globe. As educators, we would love to take our students on educational field trips every other day, expose them to challenging real-life scenarios like job interviews, volcanoes, snowstorms, or even take them to the moon and the International Space Station. This, if you haven't already experienced virtual reality, is where VR really shines. In his book, Experience on Demand, VR pioneer Professor Jeremy Bailenson makes the case that VR lets you design experience at will. Well, with recent developments in VR, those experiences can now also be shared, taught, learned on demand. These developments are set to have far-reaching implications in education. Let me explain. Firstly, I think many of you will agree that the traditional education market has been struggling with engagement, with pressure to deliver results, with budget cuts, with staff cuts, with rising tuition fees. At least in the UK and Europe, that's the case. I'm not sure about the UK. Secondly, over the past 10 years, the online learning sector has shown massive growth and is now a viable and well-accepted competitor in this field. Providers like Coursera and Udemy and Khan Academy can learn anything on sites now. Thirdly, virtual worlds like Second Life have matured a lot and have proven very valuable in learning already, like Valerie, like you all know. Fourthly, as we have seen, game-changing new headsets are about to hit the market. We really could be witnessing a perfect storm in education. Someone described it like this: watching VR approach education is a bit like watching a tsunami heading for the coast. Soon, anyone, anywhere will be able to immersively access high-quality education and training anytime they choose. This has the potential to fundamentally disrupt the education system along with its business models. Now, I'm aware that you might have heard all of this before. You might be thinking, that's what they said about virtual worlds. Well, you'd be right. There is a lot of excitement and no one knows how it will play out. However, the level and breadth of excitement and the level of investment are indicators that this is going to happen in a very big way. With regards to virtual worlds, you could say that now is the moment that all of the work you have put in will pay off in a whole new way. Virtual worlds are about to open their doors. We all step inside. One of the biggest opportunities here is what this disruption can do for the democratization of education. If we get it right, virtual reality could be an unparalleled tool for inclusion, diversity, access to education. I also saw a very interesting documentary called Our Digital Selves, My Avatar is Me. I think this was by one of the Second Life made this documentary. I was fascinated by it. This is only intensified. Virtual reality lets you actually step into the shoes of your avatar. Let me just see. Sorry, I got distracted then for a moment. So if we get this right, VR could be an unparalleled tool for inclusion, diversity, and access to education. And this is vital and requires serious attention. One, because of the opportunity, but two, equally because of the risks. This brings me to my third main point today. How we act and react now will define much of the virtual reality landscape going forward. So far, the biggest focus has been technology work, getting the software to run well. Now that this is maturing, we are starting to be faced with the questions that arise from interacting with this technology, software, and what happens when enough people join up to make this a persistent reality, much like Second Life. The community needs to develop guidelines, standards, and agreements that allow maximum freedom with maximum respect. Issues such as privacy, harassment, diversity, and access will affect us all and are therefore our collective responsibility. Luckily, there are communities such as yours and in other virtual worlds who have been dealing with these issues for many years already. So virtual reality can hopefully benefit from the experience and develop upon it as needed. I had a very surprising chat with my stepdaughter yesterday. She's 20 and what I consider to be of the new generation. She's fully plugged into the mobile social media world. We got talking about the future of tech and VR in particular. Her reaction was not what I expected. She thinks virtual reality will be even more isolating than mobile phones are already. I never thought she found mobile social media isolating because it's so much part of her. She's genuinely concerned that persistent and pervasive virtual reality could make things worse for humanity. Among her friends, it is already taken for granted that mobile social media is responsible for an epidemic of anxiety, mental health disorders, and for her, VR is mostly a road to dystopia. We also had a speaker at one of our events at Educators in VR on AltSpace who discussed her research on harassment in virtual reality. Jessica Outlaw surveyed 600 VR users to find out how many had experienced harassment. 60% said they had. This is considerably higher than in real life. It just goes to show how much work we have ahead of us. And the examples I've given here are just the social challenges. We also face considerable technical challenges. In order for virtual reality and augmented reality and the multiverse, or whatever you want to call it, to reach its full potential, it has to be accessible to all. Yet at the moment, virtual reality platforms are often walled gardens. Equipment is still financially exclusive. Network coverage is still not available to 2/3 of the world's population. And apart from all of that, when talking about education with and in virtual reality, we are still right at the beginning. You Second Lifers might not be, but as far as I'm concerned, virtual reality is right at the beginning. We have an amazing tool with seemingly unlimited potential, but no one is exactly sure yet how to integrate it, for example, into the curriculum, K through 12 curriculum. No one has figured out the pedagogies behind this new medium. The content design has a long way to come from its gaming background before it finds its own home. And all of these factors add up. Asking teachers and management to embrace and invest in virtual reality as the new standard in the way that PCs and smartboards are is going to take a very long time. Yet, there are a number of compelling reasons why virtual reality is actually an excellent investment right now. Virtual reality can deliver education to more learners per teacher, so staff cost savings. Remote meetings and learnings can also save on travel cost and time, as well as deliver carbon dioxide reduction. If you look at it from this perspective, you're actually saving money long term. Added to this, the growing amount of research seems to be indicating improved learning outcomes, as well as enabling learners to develop empathy and valuable skills. One of the biggest risks is one that also applies to the internet as a whole. That is openness. Virtual reality needs to be and stay open to all. If not, it will just perpetuate and intensify our divisions instead of healing them. Okay. The next point I want to make might surprise you, and it actually relates back to the conversation I had with my stepdaughter. I think at this point we need to be really careful about how all this technology affects our minds and our mental health. I'm not the first to say this, but this technology, and for me personally, virtual reality, is so alluring, so convincing, and so powerful that we need to make extra sure we keep our feet solidly on the ground. The same technology that can enable us to experience impossible worlds and impossible experiences has the potential to distract us from real-world problems. I started meditating when I was 18, and over the years I've been on retreats and run regular sessions for my colleagues and friends. The ability to sit still, breathe, and be alone with myself in a quiet place is the best medicine I know. I call it my reset button, and without this regular disengagement from technology, all other stimuli, I would really suffer serious stress and anxiety. I consider it fundamental to. The thing is, while mindfulness is enjoying a lot of media coverage at the moment, it's nowhere near enough to keep up with the increase in intensity of the new stimuli we're experiencing. I'm not even talking about virtual reality now. Just mobile phones alone are too much for many people to handle in a healthy, balanced way. And I've noticed this with myself. I've been spending too much time on my mobile phone, laptop, and in virtual reality with all of this work I've been doing. And I've noticed it started to affect my relationships, my mental health, my enjoyment of life. No amount of improvement in VR or technology will ever replace the moment of joy I share with my son kicking the ball around the garden, with my wife soaking up the evening sun on a beach, or sitting with my aging mother reminiscing about days gone by. So this next bit might sound like a contradiction, and I have yet to find out for myself whether it is or not, but actually VR might also be able to help here. I've just agreed to start delivering regular meditation sessions on Altspace VR. When I first heard of meditation in virtual reality, I was beyond skeptical and rejected it outright. However, recently I decided to give it a go just for the sake of it. And to my profound surprise, I was actually really moved, and it spoke to me deeply. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that we all need to start meditating in VR, far from it. What I am trying to say is that while this technology promises many exciting developments, maybe some new answers to our common and global problems, we need to be able to stand well back from it, keep a detached perspective on it as well. With all this progress, we need to look after what is worth preserving. Looking back over the past 18 months that I have been on this journey, there isn't a thing I would change. And I cannot hide my passion for VR. But there is a lot of work to do for us to make sure that we end up with the best that virtual reality has to offer, and to make sure that virtual reality ends up serving each of us instead of us serving it. Okay. But I want to end on a more positive note, on a much more positive note. So at this point, I'm going to share with you ambitious but kind of common sense vision with you of relating to education in VR. This is a global network of virtual reality enabled schools. As more and more individual teachers and schools take the leap into exploring virtual reality and augmented reality in their classrooms and workshops, and as social VR continues to progress in leaps and bounds, it will not take much to set up a network that allows all the teachers and learners to interact with each other safely and securely. And in this shared virtual educational space, experiences, learning, resources, and lessons can be accessed independently of the. If a teacher creates a valuable virtual reality experience, they upload it to a shared cloud-based server. By uploading their own content, they, their learners, and their college get access to all other content. Running this learner experience can be limited to a particular location, but some experiences are automatically open to learners from anywhere. So, when appropriate, an experience may be shared with only your classmates, and other experiences you share with learners from around the world. Of course, such a kind of network has practical issues like languages and server sizes, but these issues are always learning opportunities. And at the rate at which real-time translation is progressing, we pretty much have language covered. Imagine this: an expert in physics from Australia, developing, delivering, and sharing excellent immersive learning for the benefit of all. His students can access this content with students from around the world at the same time. The next day, they can access similar experiences by other experts else in the world, or say French or acting or cooking, with students from Korea, Sudan, Iceland, the US, and Russia all learning together, sharing their experience. Imagine how young minds would be shaped by this absence of barriers, borders, or distance. Surely this is worth working towards. This vision will take funding, and funding is always the first barrier to be mentioned. But again, this is actually an opportunity to invest with an invaluable return on investment. The prices of quality headsets are now comparable to mobile phones. The big VR companies, along with governments, could fund this project, and it would be in their interest. Because getting learners acquainted with virtual reality while at school will then no doubt lead to an increase in sales of equipment and software. Once this academy model has been prototyped and proven, it would be ready to scale. And at this point, the savings listed above would kick in, and sales figures would be likely to increase. So everybody wins. Well, it's much easier said than done, of course, I agree. But nothing easy was ever worth much, and nothing valuable was ever easy. In essence, what I'm proposing is similar to saying that schools around the world should link up via Second Life to share learning experiences and resources. It just makes sense to me. Why wouldn't you? So we've covered a lot of ground, and I'm coming to the end of my presentation. I hope I haven't been speaking too quickly for you. Just going to bring up some recommendations, a few concise recommendations, if I may. If you're curious enough about virtual reality to take the next step, here's what I suggest. I would say start now. Get your board ready because surf is up. Also, please bring your Second Life experience with you. Help the VR folk to navigate the new terrain. Stay open-minded because virtual reality and Second Life have many similarities, but just as many differences and even more unknowns. If you're considering buying a headset, I would recommend going for a standalone 6 degrees of freedom hand tracking like the Oculus Quest, the HTC Vive Focus Plus. In terms of education, I would recommend that you explore and experiment. Always focus on the why and the how over the what. Finally, please keep your feet on the ground. And final slides. Okay. I'd just like to wrap up with this. Digital learning is a spectrum that ranges from PCs to mobiles to remote e-learning, Skype lessons to virtual worlds, right on to immersive virtual and augmented reality. No one medium will replace the others, and should they. But together we can create a greater palette of choices. Across all media, things are speeding up, so we need all the allies we can get. Please join the journey and help us get virtual reality right. You have pioneered before. It's time for you to do it again. May you learn in interesting times. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Daniel.
Okay.
We have just a minute. I wonder if anybody has any questions for you, or
Yes,
for Val,
please.
for that matter.
Love to bring some chat up. Okay. So will I see the questions somewhere? If can I respond to them in some way?
Far I'm
will it
seeing
be-
just
or-
accolades.
Yeah. Any
Yes,
questions?
Orange
Yes.
has one.
I also, okay.
I can read them out to you if that
Yes,
would be
please.
easier. Yeah?
Yes,
Okay.
that might be easier. Yeah.
Okay, no problem at all. Yeah, it can be hard to find them in the chat when
Okay.
there's so many people applauding for you, which is good.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Yes. Okay, so let's see. There was one, I believe. No, I'm looking for it.
I think Carolyn said she could help with that as well, Elise, if you need some assistance.
Oh, that's kind of her. Okay, yes, I thought that I had seen one in there. Okay, Orange has asked, isn't there the problem with VR such that people will end up being able to stay at home and not need to visit an office? And there's like a follow-up question.
Yeah.
Would they even need a computer if they can type kind of in quotes in VR?
Okay, so let me just check that I've got the question right. Would there be a problem with people not having to go to work? Was that the question?
Yes. Yeah, it's
Okay.
basically, yeah.
That's a very, very good question. And I don't have a crystal ball. I can't foresee the future, but I'm starting to see developments whereby, yes, that might be the case. Students or workers may well be able to immerse themselves in a work environment from home. I mean, when I do the educators in VR events with attendees, that's essentially what we're doing. I don't personally see it as a problem. I do see that it could be potentially disruptive, that with enough students and headsets, colleges might have to adapt so that colleges might have to reach out to students rather than students coming in. They might have to provide learning experiences in VR to reach students in a new way. I hope that answers the question.
And Orange had asked if they could
Yep.
use voice. We gave them the go-ahead, so I'll go ahead and turn the mic over.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, voice.
Thank
please.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you. The question is more about the isolation of humans from each other.
Good question.
I don't know that, I mean, having worked as a consultant where I basically worked at home and didn't go to see people, I found that to be a very emotionally draining experience. And I ended up leaving because I was so unhappy. I'm wondering if you would comment on that.
Thank you for the question. I will answer it, but can I just ask you a question back, Orange? It is Orange, is that correct?
That's me.
Yeah, yeah. How much do you use Second Life at the moment? And What way?
I use it mostly as a chat client. Occasionally, I go to events like this where I hear other people's ideas. I occasionally teach in Second Life using a mixture of graphics, voice, and text.
Okay. And so when you're doing that, are there people around you in the room, or are you engaging purely with the people through the computer?
Well, my wife is with me in the room,
Okay.
but she may as well not be if I'm teaching in Second Life.
Right. Okay. So the point
but the
I'm trying to
reality
make-
is I see avatars and they interact with me directly.
Yeah.
If I'm working at home, it's a very with colleagues, it's a very different experience.
Yes, I agree it is. I think the point I'm trying to make is that I have limited experience of Second Life, but I personally, from my experience of virtual reality, I don't see it being isolating in a different way. Somebody using virtual worlds like Second Life. I see your point about the chance for isolation. It's a two-edged sword because on the one hand, you're right, mobile phones are already cutting us off and now we're getting inside the computer. But at the same time, I have connected with communities that I couldn't connect with otherwise through virtual reality. I've made friends and colleagues. I've started projects that I've really only been able to do through the medium of virtual reality. But I agree, there is the chance. It's a two-edged sword. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you. I enjoyed the answer.
Okay. Any more questions?
Are there any other questions?
I was going to say real quick, I have one, which is, I know I met you through AltSpace VR, and I was just curious, because I know that you work with that, and I know you've been into several different VR platforms. If someone in a virtual world like Second Life was interested in exploring a social VR platform, do you have one in particular that you'd recommend?
That's a good question. I suppose it partly depends on the equipment that you're using because not all platforms are available to, for example, the Oculus Go, which is a very popular, affordable headset. Couldn't, for example, access my preferred learning spaces, which is called Engage VR. If you have a powerful enough equipment, I would automatically recommend AltSpace VR, and the reason why is that they have so many users. To get a real idea of the impact of social VR, you really need to experience it with users. So AltSpace is a good starting point, definitely. Beyond AltSpace, Somnium Space is very new, and they're very interesting. They have a similar model whereby you can buy land and develop it, and they're looking quite promising. Sansar, I have limited experience with because my equipment, even though it's quite powerful, it glitches a lot. It's not an experience really that I can enjoy. High Fidelity is a pretty good social space, and it doesn't have some of the disadvantages of VR chat. VR chat is very popular, a lot of users, but it's a little bit like the wild, wild west. You have to be ready for a bit of rough and tumble if you go to VR chat. People like to play with you there. So I tend to choose kind of less challenging social spaces. I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you. Yeah, that was really great. Lots of different sources there for us to check out. And we had a question on the spelling of Somnium Space.
Yes, Somnium Space. SOMNIUM, Somnium Space.
Awesome.
Okay.
I had to make sure we had that correct in the chat, and it looks like we do.